The Angry Chicken Hearthstone podcast is produced by amove.tv. Check out amove.tv for more podcasts covering Blizzard games. For more of Jocelyn's gaming podcasts, visit jossplays.com. And to find many more podcasts with Ridiculous Hat, follow @RidiculousHat on Twitter. Every episode of TAC is made possible thanks to our legendary patrons over at patreon.com/TAC.
Time's up. Let's do this.
Legendary!
You face Jaraxxus. You smell like a leper gnome. I knew it. So hot.
A podcast about Hearthstone and Battlegrounds. This is The Angry Chicken!
Greetings and welcome back, everybody. This is indeed, as that disembodied voice of Ben Brode said, The Angry Chicken. I'm Garrett Weinzerl, here as always with Ridiculous Hat. Jocelyn is out today. She's not feeling so hot, so you should go tweet @JossPlays your favorite unicorn GIF. Also, unattribute it. Don't say anything. Zero context unicorn GIFs @JossPlays. Let's get it going.
There's no time to explain.
There is no time
you
to
need
explain.
to get you need to get that GIF onto the internet as quickly as possible. There's no time for exposition here.
Look at us getting along. You say it one way, I say it another.
The important thing is that Joss gets animated sparkly ponies with a horn in their head as fast as you can find it, listener. If you pause the podcast to go do that now, we approve. We'll stay here.
Yeah.
We'll just chill.
We might just keep talking about it so you don't have to pause and you could get it done by the time we actually start talking about anything of substance.
Yeah. Well, anything of substance, I think that's an ambitious hope for this show, but, that's not why we're here. We're here to podcast.
How you doing this week?
I'm doing okay. So I work, for those of you that don't remember, I work in a movie theater chain, and this movie, Dune, kicked my ass. That's what it did. It was quite busy, and I am pleased.
Oh, I'm glad.
Academically.
I'm happy to hear that it was busy.
Yes.
Not that you were busy.
One of my favorite directors.
Yeah.
Yeah. Listen, it comes with the territory. My company's not going bankrupt. Dennis Villeneuve is making money. Roger Deakins is finally being recognized for the amazing cinematographer that he is. And a 2.5-hour-long sci-fi epic that was mostly world building actually was popular, which means they'll make more of them. I love all those things. My back hurts. And today was my 6th of 7 days working in a row because it was also one of my manager's vacations. Not business days, calendar days. As in, tomorrow will be the 7th day I've woken up and blearily trudged to work, or rather to the train, and then napped on the train on the way to work. But, it was, I'm glad it was busy, and I'm glad that people are going back to the movies, but I'm tired.
I feel you, man. I drove to the other side of the state yesterday for no good damn reason. I don't really feel like telling the whole story right now because I feel a little dumb, but I'll just say it was impulsive. It ate my whole day, and I am tired.
Okay, Garrett, I have a joke that requires the background on your trials and tribulations of the past 24 hours. And I was going to share it before the show, but I think this should be on the show.
All right, fine. All right,
two things going on.
Do I need to? Are you goading me into explaining why I went to the other coast of Florida?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I am.
I have been getting offers on the current vehicle that I own that are too good to turn down. And as much as I love my vehicle, I have kind of been feeling over it. And so I went to the other coast to look at a replacement vehicle from a place that was giving me a really good offer. And that replacement vehicle was in very bad condition, so I just turned around and went back.
Yes. I'm sorry that you had to make that trip. And listeners, it's also important to note, we started about 15 minutes late today because there was a hard disk problem when Garrett was booting up his computer, which is a terrifying thing as a podcaster. So I just assumed that you were looking for new cars because you had drive failure.
Ba-da-ba-ba-da-ba. Wow, that was a lot of setup. Holy crap. Wow.
It was.
Damn, dude.
I wanted you to get my AAA effort.
You went hard for that one. That was great. No, I'm actually in a great mood for completely other, non-Hearthstone related reasons. I literally, minutes before going live, got a text from my cousin that he is now engaged. She said yes with a picture of the ring. I have two cousins that are basically a brother and a sister to me. This is one of them. I'm so stoked for him. I'm in such a good mood right now. I love love, man. Love's great.
Big fan.
Big fan of love. Big fan of marriages. I haven't been in a wedding in a very long time. I could use one. So yeah, I'm coming into this, tired, but in good spirits. That's how I'm feeling.
Good. I'm grateful for them and grateful for you.
Yeah.
And you know who else we're grateful for, Garrett?
Our patrons supporting us over at patreon.com/TAC, of which we had the most new patrons in a single week in, I believe, 6 months at least, if not more. So, to our latest patrons, Jeff Klein, Eddie, no last name given, Caldo, no last name given, and Turd Ferguson. That's what they wrote as their name. I am not insulting someone who decided to back us on Patreon. Thank you very much for deciding to support this podcast that we do here called The Angry Chicken. We really appreciate the support, and I was just stoked, adding new patrons being like, oh, damn, that's a lot of new patrons in the last week. So I appreciated it a lot, everybody. This is rad. So if you haven't checked out the Patreon before, check it out, patreon.com/TAC. We're not going to put the show behind a paywall, but if you decide that you'd like to give us $1 or more, you can. It's an opt-in subscription. We have some levels preset for you, but you can put in whatever works for you, and you'll get access to our Discord server, an ad-free version of the show, plus some other perks. And every level of patron gets what I just mentioned. So check it out, patreon.com/TAC. And the housekeeping continues, although this time let's get real hype because we got more giveaways and we have giveaways to congratulate. So first off, congrats to the 10 winners of last week's Dibbles Mercenaries bundle. We're going to be talking about Dibbles today. Diablo, for those of you who are not familiar with the vernacular, for other reasons. But we have drawn our winners, and you have all been sent your Diablo Mercenaries pre-purchase bundle code. You cannot buy these bundles anymore, so congratulations, and we want to thank the Hearthstone team for sending those codes to us. I believe we also have to say that, for legal reasons, where we got the codes.
We have to say that they sent them. We don't have to legally thank them. We're choosing to do that on our own.
Oh, that's a good point. I never thought about it that way. I mean, I am thankful. Yeah. It's it is legitimately
we are
good.
Legitimately thankful. But the law doesn't say that we have to be grateful.
You can't force someone to be thankful. You can just force someone to be transparent.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good stuff. I see you, DT. I see you in that chat room.
We have a lawyer in the chat, and that they're corroborating what we're saying.
And they might have other links that are relevant to the conversation we're having on hand. So, congratulations. We have no more Diablo bundles to give away, but we do have Lich King Mercenary pre-purchase bundles to give away. If you are an astute follower of TAC Podcast on Twitter, you may have already seen a giveaway tweet go out earlier today asking you to follow the TAC Podcast account and retweet a certain tweet. I will try my best to remember to include a link of this into the blog post of today's episode, so go look for episode 439. But you can also just go to TAC Podcast on Twitter and scroll down until you see it. It's got an image on it of Lich King. I made it easy on you. Yep. So follow the account, retweet that. However, if you are listening to the sound of my voice, that means you are one of our lovely podcast listeners, and we want to give you a chance, something that's a little more specific to the podcast, to enter. So we have another 5 Lich King Mercenary pre-purchase bundles that we're going to give away. And so if you are listening right now, you've got an extra chance. You've got an extra chance to win another set of 5 that we're giving away. We're not going to double up. We do check for duplicates between the 2 giveaways. But you should enter by doing what I'm telling you to. Listen, Hat, I don't know if you know about this, but the Lich King is apparently a member of the Horde, according to Mercenaries. Which, is an absolute bomb drop of lore to me. I had no idea. But knowing what I know now, that the Lich King is a member of the Horde, even though it is Arthas Lich King, very specifically, that is in Mercenaries, I would like to start an election right now, and I would like to give bundles away based on this election. So if you tweet at TAC Podcast using the hashtag Arthas for War Chief, you will be entered for a chance to win one of these bundles. Hashtag
Still
Arthas.
Probably better than our last War Chief, right?
Last War Chief was Volj. Wait, no, Sylvanas. Jesus. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah,
She wasn't great. She wasn't. It was a rough reign there.
Yeah, rough writing.
That's what we both said.
Yes, exactly. Anyway, hashtag Arthas for War Chief. I don't believe case sensitivity is important. Chat room is asking.
It shouldn't matter. You're welcome to capitalize however you want. Also, much like the last giveaway, we do account for misspelling, so don't worry if your spelling is a little bit off, and we find a way to deal with it.
Are you aware of what happened last week?
What?
I told people to enter with a specific hashtag, and then I told them how to spell it, and I misspelt the spelling I meant them to spell. And I'm not going to say what that hashtag was to avoid confusion. The hashtag for this week's giveaway of Lich King Mercenaries pre-purchase bundles is hashtag Arthas for War Chief. But last week I said, hey, do this hashtag spelt this way, and I misspelt it.
So we accounted for that.
We did.
For you and for them.
Yes. There was a very consistent misspelling that was coming in, and we just added you into the mix. We just in there. And again, we checked for duplicates. So anyways, yeah. Tweet at TAC Podcast using the hashtag Arthas for War Chief. And best of luck, everybody. We'll announce winners on next week's episode. Well, we don't announce them by name because we don't want people like trying to break into your Twitter account or whatever. So, but yeah, we'll let you know when it closes. We'll close it out before next week's episode. Send out the codes, and yeah, good luck, everyone. That's gonna wrap it up for this week's housekeeping. Let's talk about Hearthstone news.
Good news, everyone!
I'm not even sure where to start. I would call it a kind of a quieter Hearthstone season right now, and yet there is still quite a bit to talk about. These are the moments where I go, I remember when I thought I was going to do this show maybe 2 times a month. Thinking, oh yeah, that'll be fun to do a Hearthstone show. Let's do it 2 times a month because there probably won't be that much to talk about.
So today, Garrett, I asked you, what have you been doing in Hearthstone this week? And you said BGs. And I forgot that was a mode in the client this past week because I have played 0 of them and not even gone near the button. And it's kind of incredible how many options are at the buffet now. How many things there are to do, how many different things there are to try. But at the same time, you're right that a lot of the modes feel like they're in holding patterns at the moment because a lot of the changes that are coming, a lot of them were deferred due to technical reasons due to the implementation of Mercenaries. And things are just kind of shaking out right now and stabilizing. There's definitely more coming. We'll cover that news here.
Yeah, but it's very unique, as you said. Like there's legitimately too much to do, and at the same time, it does feel like everything is in that holding pattern that you talked about. Which, yeah, we already talked around it. Like, who knows how much Mercenaries truly delayed certain things, like the mini set. I think it did. I mean, and I'm not mad about it. To me, it makes sense. It would be I think it would be a dumb marketing move.
Well, Dean talked about it on Twitter that like it wasn't Mercenaries delayed the mini set. It's that the engineers couldn't cleanly merge the code to both the mini set patch and Mercenaries in the same thing. It would have been way too much technically. So it's not that the mini set wasn't done. The mini set is done. They just couldn't get it shipped at the same time.
That makes sense. Yeah. And frankly, like, I don't know. I tend to lean towards wanting things broken up. This is something we talk about over in Heroes of the Storm all the time. It feels like they wait until they have a lot of changes. They implement it all at once. And I'm of the mind of like, just spread that stuff out. Give me like a couple balance tweaks and let's go. But you know, I can understand it. And also you mentioned a technical limitation. So anyways, let's kick it off with probably, I don't want to over quantify, probably the biggest news of the week, probably the most discussed and controversial topic of the week, which is the most efficient
biggest discourse. That's
a good way to put it. I like to call it internet shouting. The topic that caused the most internet shouting in the past week was that the most efficient way to level your mercenaries has been nerfed.
Kinda. So, okay. This is going to be, I'm going to get a little technical here. For those of you that, excuse me. That is a vicious personal attack that I don't need to stand for.
I should start a syndicate.
You're redeemed by a reference to one of my other podcasts. We've come full circle. We're okay. We're chilling. So the Mercenaries has a bunch of systems. Those of you that don't play very much, You don't have to worry too much about this. It won't affect you. Those of you that don't min-max and haven't been min-maxing Mercenaries, also, I'll explain this and you might go, I guess that explains this thing. The There are tasks in Mercenaries that are assigned daily, randomly. You start with 2 open task slots. You can level up to 4, where it gives you something, and then the reward for that task gives you coins and progression. When you finish 2 tasks for Mercenaries, it gives you an equipment. When you finish 7 tasks for Mercenaries, it gives you equipment. It goes up to 18 tasks per Mercenaries, with quite a bit of rewards tied towards the later tasks and a few packs here and there. And there's a swirly spot on maps that spawns guaranteed on heroic maps, where there's a chance of different events, including one of which called Mysterious Stranger, where it triggers a discover option of it pick 3 mercs in your party, and you get a next task for one of them if your campfire has a slot. So players were going into the second heroic map of Barrens, which is the first area, which is the shortest map possible with a guaranteed swirly, only bringing 3 max level mercs, and playing it over and over again to get tasks. As you can imagine, I think we can safely say this was not intended. It resulted in very efficient task progression, no level progression, as you're fighting super duper under-leveled enemies that you kill in one turn as quickly as possible, and then you progress your merc by getting tasks, and then you finish the tasks. And it is soul deadening, but probably the best form of incremental progress throughout the game, the quickest way, if you need to level up for PvP, because PvP is all about high level competition between mercs that are as maxed as possible. So once some people started doing this in high level PvP, other people kind of felt compelled to do so, because if someone is optimizing and you aren't, then you will theoretically lose. And at a certain point, the matchmaking runs out of AI. Like, it doesn't give you AIs over 6,500. So you're going to play against other people. And if they've done this and you haven't, then you lose. I don't think that this was being done by a huge amount of the population, but it was being done enough, especially at the competitive level, and it's so far outside of the clear intended purpose of the game, that they made a change this past Friday that I think the way you described it as controversial is accurate, where they said the chance to see Mysterious Stranger now scales relative to the difficulty of the bounty and the highest level of any merc in your party. So if you go to a higher heroic level, you could be more likely to see it, or as likely to see it, the stranger, as you were before. But if you take a hugely leveled party to a starting zone, the chances of seeing Mysterious Stranger are very, very low. If you weren't task farming, this just means you might have realized, I'm running into a lot of potatoes or sabotage or blue portals on earlier heroic maps. That's different. And then you shrug and you move on. Or you play heroics in order, as I've been doing, and you run into strangers a little bit more because they're harder, and you're like, that's kind of cool. But for players that were task farming, especially for players that were free to play and using this for income, for in-game currency that you earn from the tasks, they were disappointed. And it turns out there is another way to farm, using, instead of Barrens 2, use Felwood 6, the Lord Bane Hollow bounty, on Heroic. It will often be faster, and you get more levels for your characters. So they didn't fix the problem, they just kicked the can down the road by encouraging players to do harder bounties instead of easier ones.
Yeah.
It's, you know, the this is kind of an edge case, but I think something that Dean said during his AMA is that he was extremely surprised by how much engagement there was with a level PvP in Mercenaries instantly among the super competitive crowd. I think it was something that they weren't expecting. And this is a symptom of there not being a good conduit to get to endgame PvP for people that just want to play a lot of PvP. So
Yeah,
they're
and,
bringing the
and I have a sinking suspicion that, much like last week, word Joss here should be going, oh come on! There's always people that just rush to the end. To which I'll
they
say
should have seen this
to
coming.
yeah, to me doing my best Joss impression, I agree. Like, it's any game like this. Like, people will always figure out a way. I'm trying not to quote Ian
In
Malcolm here.
other Blizzard games, this has been a thing. This is just how gamers game. and it's not a new idea. So that leads me to believe they just missed the idea of task farming. Like, I think that if you had the collective knowledge of how gamers act and you left this in the game, then that is just a large mistake, and I don't think they made a large mistake. So I am going to guess that this was just missed. That'd be my guess.
I,
But
yeah, it's the nature of any sort of game that has a grind like this, right? It's just, yeah, I like the way you frame it by saying, like, by kind of, obviously I think there were people on kind of regardless of how they played the game that were not stoked about this, because anytime there was once something and then it is taken away, there's a certain populace of players that aren't going to be stoked. And I've experienced stuff like this in all sorts of other games. If, like, I cannot believe that Hearthstone made me think of, like, launch Destiny, but that's the first thing that came to mind was the loot cave in Destiny 1, which I abused greatly when Destiny 1 came out. And this reminds me of that a lot because it wasn't fun. I didn't enjoy the loot cave, and while I didn't take part in this, I don't think I would have enjoyed in farming mysterious strangers either.
I just didn't do it because I wasn't angling for high-end PvP, but anyone that was, you were kind of priced into doing it. And if you did, the rewards were there if you had the time and were able to survive it. And some people talked about it was kind of this really zen thing, right? Because it's PvE content. You don't have to think at all. It's bare muscle memory at a certain point where you're just clicking through and clicking the same buttons. And it was really efficient and effective. You could just kind of zone out and get it done if you were just sitting at your computer the whole time. And for some players, that was enjoyable of making the numbers go up as quickly as possible. Like, I think it's important to note there was some upside to this for some people. However, I think it's also fairly clear that this was not how they intended for us to play the game, because if it was how they intended us to play the game, they would not have made other levels. They would have just
Well,
made this
yeah,
one.
intent is a big part of it, right? Like, I get I'm not arguing with the folks that enjoyed it. Like, I clearly don't share that feeling, but, if you enjoyed it, yeah, okay. It sucks that something you dug is something you can't do anymore. But beyond that, like, that my brain definitely goes to, like, what is the purpose? What was the intent of designing this mode and how you level up, right? Because there isn't a way, as you put it, to, like, of all our concerns, of all of our extraneous concerns, when I'm saying ours, I'm like colloquial, like Hearthstone community as a wide-reaching group, of all of our concerns about Mercenaries being pay to win, you can't pay to speed up the leveling process.
Yeah, or tasks. Can't pay at all. It is
Right.
specifically time gated. They removed the money part from that. This is the part of the discourse that upsets me the most, is that they said Blizzard took this out because it was too income efficient. And I think that is a very silly argument,
I don't
because
see it as, yeah, and
I've not seen a single person that has gone out there that's like, they just nerfed Mysterious Stranger. I'm so mad I'm going to go spend a bunch of money. No, the people that were doing this were spending no money and playing, and now they're going to spend no money and not play because this was the only thing they were doing, right? Like, this is not something where you have to spend money now. The avenue that is being closed here is non-financial. It's a time investment, and the people that were dependent on this or chose to engage this way are just going to not do that anymore, or they're going to switch over to Fellwood 6, which is probably about as efficient.
But you need to be higher level to even start really abusing it, right?
Anyone that was task farming already is going to do just fine. If you were doing this to the point where you're upset that you can't anymore, Fellwood 6 is not going to be something that you are limited in engaging with by
There's also
there's
there's the FOMO crowd. There's a crowd that didn't engage with it because they were kind of playing slower, but are now feeling like, oh don't I should have gotten in while the getting's good, and that's still relevant. I don't think that not that you were discounting them, but I don't necessarily.
Sure. It looks like the sort of thing where people were surprised that they fixed this and not the other stuff. To which I respond, this is the 5th patch in the first 10 days of the game's release. It's all server-side. They cannot fix the economy that quickly. They cannot fix client-side stuff that quickly. They cannot change the UI that quickly. But the game designers probably watched people doing this and said, "No, we'd rather they play the game," and then made that change. And if you would rather still just farm, it is still in the game. This is just breaking the loop of the really mindless content and perceived need to constantly farm so that players that were only in it for that purpose can get some distance and step back from it. And so that it isn't just the pure muscle memory. You actually have to think a little teeny bit in the later higher level bounties, and it's a little bit more engaging in my humble opinion, even though I'm not doing any farming.
Yeah, I was not either. Like, yeah, maybe I see this as maybe we should just be having a conversation about the speed of leveling in general. What you opened with, which is the concern about people that just want to get straight to end game mercenaries PvP, like maxed out PvP, all of those sorts of things. Because it's to me, it's very weird how many analogies I can draw with MMOs that I played, and specifically World of Warcraft being the one I played the most. Was it kind of just feels like that? It's like, well, what if I just want to get to quote unquote end game, which is a weird thing to talk about in Hearthstone. I'm not used to using the term end game in Hearthstone, but Mercenaries essentially has an end game depending on what you're interested in. So yeah, to me, like, I think that's a bigger concern because I don't look at this as anything that's even attached to the talk of cost of Mercenaries. Like, I don't see it as cost adjacent.
No, it's players made their own pathway to the content they wanted to play, which was anticipated by the design team as content that they wouldn't want to play yet. And that was incorrect. It like I'm assuming their assumptions, which is it's like that's a double assumption. You know what happens when you assume, Garrett? Someone makes a really terrible play on words. That's what happens every time.
And
so,
again, to tie back into last week, if you are making a game and you think players are not going to be ready for whatever it is you think they're not ready for yet, if the word yet comes into your mind, you're wrong. You're just wrong. They're going to get there in like 2 days.
Yep. It's and PvP is really good. I am surprised by how good it is. The demo login, the early access stuff that we got was designed to show the depth of the mode by spinning us in circles. But now that we've had weeks with the game and you see a bunch of people making content, and a bunch of people streaming it, and a bunch of people that are posting comps and all that, and we get what's going on, it's really good. It's really interesting. And high-level players, Educated Collins came from Arena and BGs and is really all about this. Language Hacker from Construct is really all about this. There are high-level players that are engaging with Mercenaries as a high-level game and don't seem really to be getting tired of it because it's interesting and cool and low variance. There's a lot here with only the first release of Mercs. The hard part that you can't mess up when you make a game is make sure the game is fun. They did that more than we would have expected. The infrastructure around it really, really rough, and this is a symptom of that. And it's for task progression for PvP, but the game is good, so they'll get there. And the important part they got right.
Yeah, I agree. I'm still personally not. I don't really have a horse in the race as far as PvP is concerned, but it's fascinating as a long-time fan of Hearthstone, just to see like, oh, it appears they stuck the landing in that regard, and all of the concerns around some of the rougher edges around Mercenaries as a result. Because yeah, I think if I were to surmise what you just said, it's that no one would care about this if PvP wasn't fun. It is an issue because there is something at the end of all of this that is
discourse was there. Remember when they nerfed? I don't know if you remember this. Remember when they nerfed duels passives?
You're asking me to remember something about duels.
Right. So, how many tweets do you remember seeing about duels controversy? There weren't any because
Zero.
duels is. There were like
you.
3. I follow the duels content creators,
and you're one of them.
No, I was fine with it, but I won't go into it. It's not necessary. I like duels. I know. I'm going to say it every time the mode comes up on the show, but most people just didn't engage with the mode. They changed core functionality in the game, and like 3 people tweeted about it, and then everyone just moved on because there's just a lot of indifference around the greater player base. You don't see the kind of discourse around this that we saw over the weekend. If people didn't want to play Mercs in large quantities, There's something that I've learned by working in customer service. There are 2 fence posts that you always need to keep in your mind. Fence post 1 is what I want. Fence post 2 is what I can have. The distance between those 2 is crazy town. You don't want people living in crazy town because anywhere between I want this, but I can't have this, the more they want it, the crazier they get. So the reactions that you're seeing are people that I really want to play PvP with high-end late-game comps. I do not get to. The only way they could even get close was this mindless air elemental grind, and then it seemed like Blizzard moved the goalposts further away, and people lost their minds because they want to play PvP. That desire gives me hope, and it was a little bit of a rough weekend around the dialogue of the game, but like it'll be fine.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how it evolves as a result of this. Because I see this as a course correction that makes sense to me. It is clearly not popular with everybody, but I think it asks more interesting questions about the end user, like of Mercenaries. Now that it's here and now that you can experience the late game of it, it calls in the question of like, well, what if that's the only part I'm interested in? If PvP is the only part I'm interested in, and that's how we've been talking about it, basically since day one. Is this division of PvE and PvP, which are you more interested in? But you have to engage with one to get to the other. Like you have to do the PvE to level up to get into the PvP. So it's just very interesting and it's extremely unique in terms of the whole history of Hearthstone. We've never really had anything even close to this. So I'm anxious to see where it goes. But now let's talk about standard and specifically competitive because the Masters Tour happened this past week, and you were really stoked about it. Hat as usual. I didn't really keep too close an eye on it, but how was this past weekend's Masters Tour?
So, I was working most of the weekend. I really mostly caught the Sunday play, the top 8, because I was super fried, and so in between sets, I was like, "I'm gonna go sit down," and they threw it on. Don't tell my boss. I am my boss. It's okay. You can tell me. But I watched the top 8 play, and in particular, Fury Hunter, who, spoilers, won the event, was playing out of his mind. Like, incredible run, really, really great. I was, you don't get to be the top 8 of a Masters Tour without being good at the game. And the thing about this format is that I don't know how many of these decks make me want to queue ladder for 4 months straight. But when you look at the people that have been queuing ladder with them since Stormwind came out, that have been practicing and testing them, the way that they play these decks is unbelievable. And the games are so close, and the game states they get into are really, really tight. And it's fascinating to see how much room there is left to explore in the format, as well as how far high level play gets you. In particular, Game 3 of the finals. Strongly recommended. The person that won the game, if I was in their shoes, I counted 4 separate turns on watching it back today where I would have conceded instantly. 4 separate turns, and they ended up winning the game. So, really incredible. And the 2 players were really classy towards each other on Twitter afterwards, and they're both probably GMs now, and it was just really like, if you are a fan of Hearthstone esports, you were a fan of the tournament this weekend, and there was some great Hearthstone to watch. I strongly, strongly recommend watching Game 3 of the finals, as well as the Fury Hunters play in the semifinals. He had to reverse sweep Garrote Rogue, which is a difficult thing to do, and there were some really tight games that came down to very particular draws or plays, and edge of the seat stuff. Really, really great.
That's awesome. I'm glad it doesn't surprise me to hear you talk about watching high level play in this meta. I mean, just because you feel like your own ladder performance, like I know you say you've been really Mercenaries heavy, but you've been consistently very, very high throughout a lot of this meta.
Not the past couple weeks, but yes. The past couple months I've finished top 100-ish couple times, which is new for me.
That's what I'm referencing. You know, if you went on a rough spot for the last couple of weeks, that doesn't discount what you had already accomplished there.
My legend rank has two more digit spaces in it now than it did back then. It's they fixed ladder MMR, and I tested it by losing a bunch. That wasn't intentional, but it just worked out.
I'm here to tell you that most people listening probably aren't used to seeing small numbers next to their legend icon.
I'm not either. Like, listen, I'm not trying to discount my own thing. I'm pretty great. What do you want to say? But it's
take the compliment is all I'm trying to say.
Yes, but yes, it's been it's been fun to watch people even with that like with the number in the client or whatever, watching these folks play, it's a different ball game. Like it's really, really incredible. The difference between good and professional was on display completely this weekend. So it was a lot of fun to watch. I enjoyed it more than I expected to because normally, like, I'll be honest, I don't watch a ton of Hearthstone esports. When it's on, I get engaged with it, but I don't normally go out of my way to see it. I went out of my way for this one. I'm glad I did.
Awesome. Well, rad. I'll have to check out Game 3. I definitely did not see that one. And then there's all sorts of miscellaneous, I guess I would call it, Hearthstone news this week. We're going to get into Battlegrounds specific stuff in a bit as far as the nerfs are concerned, but there's going to be a bit of a Battlegrounds mention here as well because it's part of the Hallow's End event, which just brings a ton of stuff to the game, including... I don't know how else to put this, but the thirstiest Anduin I have ever laid eyes upon.
It's a trap. A thirst trap.
Well done.
Thank you. I've been working on my Akbar.
Well, you're really raising the Akbar.
Nah.
I'm sorry.
No, you're not. Don't be. But yeah, this is kind of like Hallow's End is kind of like, hey, remember all these modes? We're gonna do some stuff. Like there's arena stuff and tavern brawl and duels and BGs. I mean, we start at the top. You just look at the top. There's a skins bundle, which I'll be honest, these are great. They have good emotes, and they have and also like Anduin's not messing around. It's hot in here.
No, not at all. I mean, geez.
Look at that.
He looks like a romance novel cover.
He does.
And
not not an expensive romance novel.
Yes. And I say that as a high compliment because I don't know who the illustrator was on this, but it's an overused term, but you understood the assignment.
Yes.
Yeah.
But then also there are other free costumes and skins because if you want to see Garrosh dressed up as a pirate, that's free. Just log in, go to the shop, click the button, then you have it now.
Yeah, I'll be using this one for a while because that's my go-to deck right now.
Yes. Very piratey. And then after that, there's supposed to be a skin for Guff, but it just looks like a normal Stormwind guard to me.
I don't know. Where is Guff? I don't know what you're talking about.
I don't know. They must have left him out of the article.
There's just a particularly swole Stormwind guard. I don't know what you're talking about.
He looks unusually enthusiastic today, but otherwise, I don't know.
Yeah, maybe he just got promoted.
Yeah. Either way, it says that you'll be able to claim this normal Stormwind guard skin on, I think, November 9th-ish? You can get Garrosh until the 9th, and then you can get the Stormwind guard skin until November 30th, which means it'll go into the shop around then. So
thank you so much for keeping Halloween around after Halloween, because I already have to deal with Christmas crap when I go to Target, and it makes me sad.
Yes.
I love Christmas, but I don't need it invading my favorite holiday.
You do not want to start me in my holiday rant, Garrett. Don't do it now. I got feelings. I've been working in the industry that's open on Christmas for 14 years. I have so many feelings.
Yeah. There's always that one movie that's almost worth it every Christmas.
Yeah, the public does not think like you. Christmas is usually the busiest day of the year.
I've heard this, and it has always boggled my mind, and we should sidebar this. I don't know. We should find a place somewhere to have this conversation. I would love to pick your brain about it. Yeah,
we'll do that. But yes, it is usually the busiest day of the year.
Yeah, I find it so very strange. Anyway, it's going to be special tavern brawls coming in with this. It's going to be a legendary quest chain starting on November 2nd. So keep your eyes peeled for that. I love the pumpkin art here, and it starts after Halloween. I mean, pumpkins and Thanksgiving go together too. Of course, if Joss was here, she would remind us that Thanksgiving is over. She doesn't know what we're talking about. That would be a thing. That would be a thing we'd have to contend with. Dual Class Arena is returning starting November 2nd. And then here is the kicker. Here is the Battlegrounds flavored kicker. Diablo is invading both duels and Battlegrounds starting November 2nd. So you might think to yourself, okay, cool, a new Battlegrounds hero. It's not that simple. This is limited time, quite limited time as well. When does this end? Is it not?
It's only a week. It's the 2nd to the 9th.
All right, cool. I was about to say, I know it's in the notes here, but I couldn't find it in the actual text here of the post.
It's a very strange abbreviated period that is also definitely related to the tech patch delay. Because like normally dual class arena is like the whole month.
Yeah. So Diablo is coming to Battlegrounds, and what they said is that, quote, when you're playing as Diablo, you become the raid boss, a term no one's familiar with in Battlegrounds. And they say every 4 turns, all the other players in the tavern will try to take down your warband plus the Lord of Terror in a special encounter. Any that take down the Lord of Terror get treasure, but Diablo gets treasure for each opponent who can't destroy his Lord of Terror.
The mechanics are not exactly thoroughly explained here. This seems like Dark Moon prizes, kind of like every 4 turns someone gets some stuff. But it seems like the player as Diablo could theoretically get up to 7 Dark Moon prizes?
Potentially?
Seems broken as hell.
Yeah, because they don't refer to it as a hero power. Well, I guess they do,
No.
but like they don't like show us the art with like they usually do when they're bringing in a new hero. They usually show us like the art of the hero power. They refer to it as a unique hero power for or no, that's duels. Never mind. So sorry, there's just straight up no reference to the term of hero power. So yeah, this is cagey.
This is specifically like obfuscated is the term I'll use. Like information is being withheld here, and we're being promised by our buddy Deck Tech in chat that the wording will make sense when we see it. I'm sure it will. And also, I think it's, even if this event is fun, probably for the best it's just a week.
Probably, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we were skeptical about Dark Moon prizes, so like, who knows? Maybe this will work out. But yeah, I'm way more skeptical about this one since it affects one player much more than the other 7 in a given lobby. So that's my my skepticism is ablaze.
It's a week. It's cool because like if it's not your thing, you don't have to wait that long for it to go away. And if it is your thing, you can just jam a ton for a week, and that's cool. And then it says special and novel. Whereas if it's around for a month, that's just how the mode is now, and that's a lot harder to stomach.
Yes. So we'll see how it goes, right? I think for your average Hearthstone player, this will be fun, and a week will maybe not seem long enough, and maybe if you're a streamer, it might wear out its welcome a little sooner. But we'll see how it goes. Let's see how it goes. I'm definitely excited and interested to see just what in the hell this is gonna be.
My curiosity is piqued. Piqued, Garrett.
As long as you're not peeking on a podcast, no one likes that.
No. What would I peek at?
I have no way to continue the joke. Let's talk.
Mission accomplished. So, but also, by the way, as the resident duels expert here on the Angry Chicken, because nobody else wants that title, Diablo is also coming to duels. He's dual class in duels. Duels class. No way this will get confusing at all. Diablo is the first ever dual class duels hero, combining the powerful warrior and warlock card pools. Warrior, warlock, ooh. Diablo also has unique hero powers and signature treasures to pick from that you can unlock as you play. Keep an eye out for an upcoming announcement of even more duels updates that will go live with patch 21.6. Okay. So first of all, this is cool as shit. Second of all, the important part of this, the most important part for the most majority of people listening to this, is not the duels part. We're gonna get Diablo on the 2nd. Also, more duels updates are going live with 21.6. It is not explicitly stated that November 2nd is 21.6, but I think you could make a reasonable inference that it is. And 21.6, the 0.6 patches are typically the mini sets. Garrett, do you see where I'm going with this?
Yes. Maybe.
Where? I think the mini set is next Tuesday.
Drops or announces?
I think the patch goes into the game next Tuesday, and the patch will go into the game with the mini set. That is my expectation. But it is only an inference.
We're not gonna have hype time with like, get your pre-purchases in. Here's the set. Get excited. It's just gonna be.
It's usually 5 days for the mini set. It's usually pretty quick, which means it would start maybe this Thursday.
I forgot that.
Yeah, mini sets are really, really quick on the hype cycle. They just dump it all, and it's like, remember the first one? It was like a day and a half of card reveals, and then she's like, "Oh, it's in the game now."
There are times where I feel like they forget that they have content creators. You could string this out a little bit longer. That's all I'm saying. Just a little bit longer.
Yeah. I don't think that there's a comfort level with the cadence of mini sets quite yet, or they feel committed to the idea that it needs to be really, really brief. I agree that I'd like to be more stretched out. I will also point out that with a set that you were at BlizzCon for, League of Explorers, the lead time on the expansion was 9 days. 7 days, 6 days. No, it was on a Friday. They said on Friday, oh, it's coming out Thursday.
I had just gotten married and I left that BlizzCon and I went on my honeymoon and it came out while I was on my honeymoon.
Yeah. So, like, they used to do that too.
Oh, I am aware that it has happened. I am simply saying that as someone with all of the bias one could have, like, give us like more than a week's notice.
Yeah. No, I would have liked some cards to talk about. Cards, please. I would like some cards.
I would like to have pulled the emergency dump everything. This is the show today. Lever. Not that I didn't want to talk about all of the stuff. We've had some fun chats here. It's just that that happens, and those are always exciting days where it's like, I don't know. It's weird. You would think it wouldn't be exciting to just be like, well, let's just dump everything we decided to put into notes and worked on and decided on the flow on, but it's exciting. It's just like, well, forget it. Let's get like raw gut reactions. I always love days like that.
Yes. And most of those this year haven't been for good reasons. Been for not good reasons.
That is very true.
So, I'd like a sudden mini set, please. We like those.
Yes. Yes, we do. All right. In other news, we've got some new Merck Bundles, and a post over on Out of Cards has made it clear to me that the new Merck Bundles, like everything related to Mercenaries economy, are a confusing value proposition.
So, okay, I will give the 30-second recap because that's all you need for this. Listen, the $5 buy a legendary I don't own yet. If there are legendaries you cannot play with because you don't own any version of them, this is a good deal. If that's not the case for you, either because you don't play Mercenaries or because you have them all, don't buy it. That is the summary.
And
There's
now
also a coin bundle. If you want to spend more money on Mercenaries, go do that. If you don't, then don't.
I'm gonna start calling this like the Mercenaries weather, so I can throw to you like a weatherman that gets through it quickly.
Yes. Also, there was a Dean AMA. Go read the Out of Cards article. There's too much in there to cover, and it's all line itemy and bullet pointy, and as much fun as reading line items and bullet points isn't a podcast. We're here to talk to each other.
We are, and we just did an AMA last week, and there's an AMA every week, and you know. Not to say the last AMA wasn't the most interesting, but some are more interesting than others, and that's when you're going to hear us talk about it. Before we move on, though, Hat, do you know why Jaina would make such a great weather person?
Why?
Because she's a meteorologist.
Nah, I get cast meteor, and the meteorologist. That was a pun in the first half of the name meteor because it's a homonym, but it means two different.
Wow, yeah, thank you for just deconstructing that. It's great. It's like an episode of Chopped. Got deconstructed hamburger helper. I like it.
Much like Jaina, Garrett, when you make a pun, I couldn't be proud more.
Oh, excuse me while I freeze my excitement.
Hey.
Well, anyways, before we move on, let's take a quick break and sponsor ourselves, which sounds bad when I say it that way. But we're going to take our sponsor break this week and remind you of some of the other awesome things going on with Ridiculous Hat, myself, and Jocelyn. And since Jocelyn is not here to represent herself, we will remind you that Jocelyn is in the middle of Extra Life season, playing games and raising money for a great cause. And you can go and support Jocelyn's Extra Life drive by going to bit.ly/TGI Extra Life 2021. We have a link to it in the show notes. Just to go to the episode 439 post and click on the Google Docs link down below. But Ridiculous Hat, do you have anything in particular you want to promote this week?
Should have been ready for this.
I was looking at him, looking at you going, is this a bit, or does he really not have anything to promote?
Oh.
You should go listen to Coin Concede, everybody. A show that Ridiculous Hat seems to have forgotten that he is on and hosts. It's wonderful. You should go listen to it.
Thanks. Thank you. Yes, I am on the show. I remember it. I have to. I do the production for that show. Oh, don't worry, I remember it. And also Vicious Syndicate. Yeah, but I'm promoting all my stuff that's in the outro. I don't know. It's none of my stuff is there for my gainful employment.
This is where you can get a little more specific. Like, oh, this week's I liked it for this reason. It was so good. But here I am coaching you on how to, make a self promotion a little more bespoke.
All right. I've got it. I've got an answer. All right. So my co-host Edelweiss, she's very good at Mercenaries, and she's like on leaderboards with weird compositions because that's what she does when she streams. And also, she talked about PvP for the educational topic last week. And every time she talked, my brain melted out of my ears because it was so intense and smart and all that stuff. So if you like smart PvP Mercenaries discussion, twitch.tv/EdelweissTCG. Go check her out. If you have an Amazon Prime sub, I think that's the best place to use it. I'm biased, but I think it's a good place to use it. Feel free to fire it off. How about you, Garrett?
I agree. Well, my newest show, and I've been mentioning it, and I will mention it again, is called Nexus Gaming News, where every Tuesday I upload a talk with my good friend Kyle Ferguson about one of the biggest games in news, usually from the previous day or two. And we are currently planning to do a pretty all-encompassing roundup of everything that has happened with the Blizzard lawsuit on tomorrow's episode. I'll be recording it tomorrow and putting it up tomorrow afternoon. So if you're curious about all of the developments there, including things like McCree finally officially being renamed in Overwatch, and also apparently Activision Blizzard trying to delay things and being slapped down and being told, no, you can't delay that. So we're going to be talking about that, detailing that. It is on Nexus Gaming News, which can be found in video form, which I highly recommend because I put a lot of work into it, over at youtube.com/AMoveTV. It is also available as a podcast, Nexus Gaming News, wherever it is you find your podcasts. And now let's talk about essentially nerfs across the board in this week's Battlegrounds segment.
Have a good battle, friend.
And you might be having a good battle if you were concerned or losing consistently to certain mech, Divine Shield, mech Divine Shield, or Millhouse Elemental boards. Because those are all the things that got dinged this past Thursday is when the patch came out. Kind of surprised me. Took me by surprise when I loaded up a game of Battlegrounds. I had heard about it Thursday, but I 100% forgot about it. Friday morning, got up, made my coffee, sat down, played some Battlegrounds. I was like, why are some of these cards poopier than I remember?
The pace of change has been kind of hard to keep up with, and this was the first one where they're like, oh yeah, we're going to change some other stuff too.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll be totally honest. I tend not to read patch notes too closely if I don't have a podcast coming up immediately. I kind of like take a glance and move on, and I come back to it with an analytical eye when it's time to write shows. But yeah, patch 21.4.4 released on Thursday. And we got some minion nerfs in Hearthstone Battlegrounds. First up is Omega Buster, a minion many of us were not sold on, but eventually got their day in the spotlight after some other noteworthy Battlegrounds changes came, and has played a very large role in why mechs have been basically the highest average placement composition if you go look at something like an HS replay. So yeah, Omega Buster got itself nerfed. It is still a tier 6 minion, but now it is a 5/5 instead of a 6/6, and it summons 5 1/1 microbots instead of 6 1/1 microbots. Other than that, it behaves the same way. For each microbot that does not fit on your board, your mechs get +1/+1, but now there is one less potential microbot to give said buffs.
This is worse and still good.
It's a great way to put it. Like most...
It was Omega busted.
Please, somebody call the police.
Okay, hold on. There's a 0% chance I'm the first person to make that joke. Not even ever today.
Oh, I know.
I'm certain someone else has made that joke today.
I know. You're on a bit of a groaner roll.
That's how I live my life, Garrett.
Oh, I know, but sometimes they're not groaners. They're like legitimately funny. But today multiple times I've just been like, that's
they're illegitimately funny. I get it.
That's a thick one. Yeah. Anyways, Omega Buster.
Much like the name for the next card. Also kind of a groaner pun.
Oh, the Holy Meckerel?
Yes.
Is what you're discussing? Yeah, Holy Meckerel, basically working exactly the same. Still a mech, still a tier 5 minion, but it has 6 attack down from 8, which I definitely felt. This hurts breakpoints. Yep. This does not get as many kills as it once did. You're significantly more dependent on finding mech buffs to make good old Meckerel here sing. But I think it needed it. Holy Meckerel, like its previous Murloc progenitor, is just a little too consistent, a little too valuable.
It's the thing about this minion is that, like, you need to make sure that you know that this is going to be a powerful effect. It needs to not be game ending. Like, it needs to be annoying and not like soul crushing. And 8 versus 6, like, just as a base cost, it was a little bit too good even the turn you bought it when it didn't do anything, or if you tripled into it, like, it was still 8 attack, it still did a bunch. And then even if it bubbled back up once, it was a big deal. It's a frustrating mechanic, and I'm not surprised that they just reined mechs in a little bit.
Yeah, they were doing a little too well. And they've just been on the rise for so long, they finally just kind of nestled into that top spot and stayed there for a long time. So, which always bums me out because
the redesign on mechs, like,
sorry, what was that?
The redesign was really good. The redesign was good.
They needed help.
They were so bad for so long.
Yeah.
And finally, like, the version that they gave us with the rework was really enjoyable to play, and it was overpowered in that kind of way where, like, it might be the best thing to do, but not by enough that people don't try other things. So it was healthier, but still needed to be reined in a little bit.
Yeah. So at least at the time of recording this, I'm looking at HS Replay. It seems like Beasts have retaken the #1 spot, though with a more, shall we call it, traditional Beast composition, which has really been the case since Leapfrog nerf. I still, from time to time, see some pretty gross Leapfrogger boards, but they're so much rarer than they once were. It's all about that Goldrum, baby.
Yeah, it's I'm somewhat grateful that the Leapfrog nerf was effective, and also that the strategy still in the game. Though, Garrett, I will say I'm looking. The current patch filter on HS Replay right now is September 21st. So when I look at only the last 7 days,
correct.
Yeah, I just noticed that last 7 days, mechs are still #1, but that's going to include some pre-patch data.
Yes.
And I don't know. I would guess that mechs are still pretty good, but also that it's going to be a little bit before we have some cleaner data to look at.
Yes, I think that's a good way to Good way to surmise it. Dragons have been so high for so long too, but they're in that weird place where they're almost even across the board for everything except first place, and their first place finish is more common than the rest. But I think it's just it speaks to how volatile trying to get a end game dragon board is.
What you're looking at with dragons is a reason like you're looking at a statistical fallacy being played out that no one is dragons until they hit the Caligos. So what you're measuring is people that hit the Caligos or people that have a bunch of dragons and then die on tier 4. So it's so even across the board because you're not really dragons until you have a whole bunch of dragon stuff going on. And that percentage of first is when the system recognizes that you're making it work, like that you're making dragons happen. Because if you get halfway to dragons, then pivot, you die. And if you have a bronze warden and a pyro spawn, you might win a couple combats, but you're not winning the lobby. So what you're seeing here is the percentage of players that end up being recognized as dragons. Those players have a very high percentage of first places.
Are you saying that if you're on your way to dragons, you have already arrived at death?
You could say that. I mean, it's if you don't hit the Caligos at the right time, then you're not dragons even though you want to be, and those games don't get counted.
I think that's a good way to sum that up. And then I said Holy Wraith because I was looking Holy Mackerel. Recycling Wraith. Used to be after you play an elemental, your next refresh costs 0. It's now after you play an elemental, your next refresh costs 1 less. Which for most of us hasn't changed. But for the mill of us, it has.
This would appear to be a Millhouse nerf that was put on a minion.
Yeah. This is the kind of thing where I certainly I've had I would call it less than a handful of Millhouse games where I got Recycling Wraith to go off, but it is very noticeable when it works. It feels absolutely 100% like you were cheating, and it's great. But it's not the kind of thing that we have an easy way of like looking at data of, right? So this is the kind of thing I look at and I go, oh, I would love to see the internal data for like, what is Millhouse's win rate with this card or with this minion?
It's anecdotally, it was crazy, and it felt like it was definitely pushing the boundaries of what was supposed to happen with that hero and in Hearthstone. It was double as effective, so they made it half as effective. And if you have 2 of them, it still works. But you have to take up 2 board slots to do that, and a golden is reduced by 1 for the next 2. It is not reduced by 2.
Yeah. Because Recycling Rate still, despite it's like, to me, it's put, regardless of what hero I'm playing, it has put elementals back on the menu. I was really avoiding them for a while. But the efficiency that comes with Recycling Wraith really helps you be a little more consistent when you're digging for the missing pieces of your elemental board. But it never felt all that contested. It was pretty easy to get a golden of. So I can see why they also address the golden version. I think these are good changes.
I mean,
overall.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you couldn't make the golden version reduced by 2 because for every other hero in BGs, that's irrelevant. This doesn't matter.
I hadn't really thought about it that way. That's a good point. But I don't know, maybe if you're just, I don't know. Like, I could see an argument for the golden version being okay for Millhouse, but I don't really want to make it. I don't really want to make that argument. I don't feel strongly about that argument.
It is better that they did this, and it is a tiny change, but it's just about sawing off sanding down the edge that was a Millhouse with an early refreshing, just suddenly dumpstering everyone in the lobby in a row.
Yes, indeed. So anyways, those are the nerfs. There were some bug fixes and other improvements in there as well, but that was the big highlight of patch 21.4.4. With that in mind, let's take your questions via our email segment.
Hello, Hello.
Just quickly, did you get my message?
Yep.
Oh.
Hello, brother.
You can send your emails to tacpodcast@gmail.com. And if you're supporting us on Patreon, send us a message on Patreon. You can message us directly in the Discord. You can skip the inbox entirely. But if you're not a patron, that's okay too. Write us in. Write into us, tacpodcast@gmail.com. Hachikumo is going to kick us off and ask, is it time to talk lore? With Barons and Stormwind setting up the personalities and story of these mercenaries, where do the hosts wish the story would go? Maybe expectations on the mini set or ideas for set 3. Feels like a while since we had speculations/wild hopes segment. I was so certain we were heading towards a classic Horde v Alliance, but the Stormwind trailer has a bunch of the Horde mercenaries just chilling, just hanging out, just visiting Stormwind. Much like how I've been asking for cross-faction play in World of Warcraft for like 5 years, it feels like.
It does? I thought the 5 that we saw were all the Alliance ones.
Aren't the Hordes in there? You're going to make me YouTube Storm.
Yeah. The Horde ones are Rokara, Dawngrasp, Brukan, Guff, and Tammy. And that means I think the 5 we saw were Kurt, Cariel, Scabs, Zyrella.
Oh, you are absolutely correct. I was thinking of the shot of them first entering, and you are correct. There are no Hordes there. Never mind. I'm going back to my original thought. What was going on in my brain? I could have sworn Rokara was in this still.
You were thinking of the Wailing Cavern cinematic.
I was not, but yeah, I was definitely thinking of the Stormwind Gate. I thank you for trying to give me an out. I appreciate it. I was just
never
wrong.
Mind. You were being dumb.
Thank you. Yeah. There you go. I was indeed.
You're welcome.
I was being dumb. I was being Hearthstone dumb, which is the best kind of dumb.
I mean, it's better than drive to the other side of the state for a car dumb.
Who would do that? You'd have to be.
Also, the assumption that someone would take better care of their car than you. Like, come on.
All right. After the show, I'll give you the full story because it was bad. Anyways, Hachikumo. Yeah. So with that in mind, knowing I was horribly wrong, never mind. I think we're going towards a classic Horde versus Alliance story. Where it takes place, I'm not too sure. Orgrimmar, which is, well, the Barrens, which is right outside of Orgrimmar, is on another continent from Stormwind. So normally I would just go, oh, what's equidistant between them? That's my guess, which at this moment would be the Maelstrom, basically. Which maybe.
I don't know enough about WoW to know where this is all heading. I still am curious about the possibility of like an Alterac Valley or something, like one of the big battlegrounds.
Oh, that'd be fun. Yeah, that'd be cool. You'd like pick any Arathi Basin to me would be the most famous of all of them.
It'd be one of the original like giant PvP battlegrounds, right?
Yeah, Barson in the chat room brings up Stranglethorn Vale, though, which if you played on a vanilla PvP server was basically the single biggest battleground. So that could also be a fun little wink and a nod to the clashing of factions of World of Warcraft past. But really, I think our complete and utter lack of specific thoughts, it speaks to just how much of its own story this is for Hearthstone. Like the Mercenaries are unique characters to Hearthstone. Yes, half of them embody the Alliance while half of them embody the Horde. But I really don't know. It's so like kind-hearted and optimistic, and it's not so much about. There's not the typical trappings of "Where's my Horde? Where's my Alliance?" and you yell and try and be louder than each other at BlizzCon. That's not really what this is, even though it still has that traditional faction leanings or trappings of Warcraft. We're on an adventure, and these are our characters.
Yeah. they seem destined to meet, but not diametrically opposed. And the core of the conflict is around the Romes, is around Cariel, Tamsin, and Cornelius more than anything. Like Tamsin wants to bring back a Netheron, like from the Demon Seed, and there's in the Paladin quest in Rise to the Occasion, you can see Cariel appears to be fighting Tamsin. It's my assumption was that the the third expansion, the crux of the story was going to be Cariel versus Tamsin as a surrogate for Horde versus Alliance, and that would probably play out as we expect. Um, which also, I mean, Kurtrus is an Alliance character, and Tamsin is the Horde character. Kurtrus is a demon hunter. Tamsin's like into demons. She's pro demon. He's anti demon. I just envisioned that would be the conflict that we would see, and also why I expected. I don't think they'll do 10 hero cards because I think that's playing with fire. Because every time they've done a cycle of hero cards, it's been format warping, is how I'll put it. And so I was expecting one for Cariel and one for Tamsin. Maybe I'm underestimating them, and that would be kind of the nature of the conflict that's illustrated in the third set.
You went deeper than I did. Because to me, as someone who hasn't been playing the single player stuff, it doesn't feel like there's been that big of a focus on the Rome family conflict. To me, like, my knowledge of that is strictly through card art, which is not the most subtle thing in the world, as you pointed out. But so much of it has just been so fun and lighthearted that I would be surprised if, like, suddenly the trailer for the third expansion is just like, Dark Evil Warlock versus Virtuous Paladin, go!
Yeah. I'm curious to see, like, maybe it's just the pile of content, especially that we've gotten in the past month or two. I kind of feel like dizzy with all the stuff that they're doing. I have no idea where they're going to go. All this is just speculation based, and we know the mercenaries are going to be involved, but trying to chart the trajectory of what this year-long narrative is trying to do is really difficult.
Yeah, and I don't know. It's I have thoughts in my head for kind of like the success of the Mercenaries as characters versus like the League of Explorers as characters. And I think from the get-go, I had a much stronger sense of the characters from League of Explorers and Riders of Shadows than I did any of the Mercenaries. But there are certainly specific Mercenaries that really work and really stick out in my mind. Guff being one of them, the amount of damn times we made like Guff references. And Cariel Rome for me as well. Like, as someone who has a major paladin hang-up, and also a pretty established back knowledge of Warcraft lore, the fact that I think Paladin, I think Hearthstone, I think Cariel, and it's all one and the same. And at no point does my brain just go, well, Cariel wasn't a character in World of Warcraft. It doesn't happen. I just think Cariel, I think Paladin, I think Hearthstone. It just works. They were really successful in that regard, as far as I'm concerned. So it's just it's a larger cast of characters. I think it's a little harder to kind of nail down.
Yeah. And some of them, like, I like Rogue, but Scabs, like, I don't really know what Scabs is about, other than he's short and a chef. But I don't really, get what his role is here.
Scabs is 110% the character that I would play if we were doing a D&D session with these characters.
Sure. I'm not saying that I don't enjoy his presence. I'm saying I don't know where he fits as a puzzle piece. And that can also be said of Guff, except I like Guff more, so he's cool.
Well, Guff is your resident himbo. Scabs I get the lovable scamp vibe from Scabs with with a side of violence. Rocket Raccoon, and not just because of the height.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I see that. He's pretty stabby. Seems to be into the stabbing.
Yeah.
I'm curious what they do. In the mini set, I think we're assuming, stockades, I think was the thing that we were that we assumed. There have been rumors about Dead Mines. We talked about Dead Mines beforehand. It's going to be some kind of dungeony thing, right?
The mini set?
Yeah.
The stockades has been on my mind for a long time. I mean, I think it was even one of my guesses for what the Stormwood expansion would be.
I would guess Stockade because it's the dungeon in Stormwind. So, like,
Yeah.
we're there already. But,
You just broke up for me. Could you repeat that? I'm sorry.
if it was Dead Mines, I would not be shocked.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah, it's not that far from Stormwind, and it is so central to Alliance, and it's kind of one and the same. At the same time,
Well,
like
and Dungar takes us there, right? Like, when Dungar pops up, it's Westfall and Plaguelands are both there.
Yeah, just because it's one of them though. Like the Plaguelands throws me. I feel like throws me off the scent because I'm like, hey, we're not gonna do Plaguelands, really. That's
That's too high level, right?
Well, I know. I think it's, to me, it's like it's more practical of like mixing. I think we go into the Plaguelands. It introduces to suddenly we're dealing with like Scourge and stuff. We got enough already. I think the charm of lower level dungeons from Warcraft, if Hearthstone players like even are aware and care, is that they're, I don't know, they're more down to earth. Like Wailing Caverns was just Kobor, and honestly, it seemed kind of like a deep cut that they incorporated that into Barrens to me. And Stockades, it's the jail in Stormwind. Like you can really take that in any direction you want. And with that being said, I think Dead Mines, it might go too far. Like Dead Mines has too much of its own flavor. I think things like Stockades and Wailing Caverns, you can apply a little bit more of the current arc to it. Be happy to be wrong, of course. I love Dead Mines. I will take all the extra Dead Mines related content you want to make. Anything Dead Mines flavored, sign me up.
And because at that point we're like almost in Westfall, and like that's also, there's a lot going on in Westfall, and we haven't touched on any of it in the story, and it would be a lot to fit into 35 cards.
Yes. Well, I don't know. If you keep it the Dead Mines, if you just keep it the Dead Mines, yeah, I could see it. I could see it working.
Yeah,
I could see it working. I mean, you could really, it'd be a fun little. Could be a fun crossover of our mercenaries up to this point. If it'd be like they joined the Defiance Brotherhood, and everyone just gets like red ninja masks.
Put Edwin in Mercs. Give me Edwin in Mercs. Do it.
Do it,
Blizzard.
Or Vanessa. Vanessa also could work.
I'll take both.
Both is good.
Both is good.
What does Disc GTI have to say? I don't know why I stumbled on that one. We thanked Disc GTI a few weeks ago as a new patron. I made a joke saying, must be a Volkswagen fan. They messaged me to tell me that they were a Volkswagen GTI fan, and I was very proud of myself.
I am proud of both of you. Go Volkswagens.
Never personally had one, but yeah.
Me neither. Disc GTI asks, what does the end of Hearthstone look like for each of you? I can't shake the game. I've been playing religiously for 7 years, and there's no sign of getting bored somehow. But I imagine at some point I'll put it down. Maybe reflecting on your journeys with other games, what do you think the end of Hearthstone will look like for you? What would cause you to put it down? I think this is a great question. And
I never think about this with any game.
I think it's a great question.
It is a great question. And I think
it's
part
not
of it
something you ever think about, like, when will I hate the thing that I like right now? Like, that's not a way that you process, but it's nice to look back and reflect on games we used to play and, like, when was that turning point for me and how can that influence my future behavior?
I'm not sure this will ever come. I almost got there. With a little expansion called Rastikan's Rumble. But when the game becomes so stale, I cannot take it anymore. Because that is what led me away from StarCraft 2. There was a phase in Heart of the Swarm where things stayed so samey for so long that even though there was another expansion in the distance, we could see the light at the end of the tunnel. I was doing a StarCraft podcast and numbers were good. I couldn't take it anymore. It also helped that there was another game that I wanted to play way more. It was called Heroes of the Storm.
Yep. It's the way the game almost died for me was it was the same era, but that was also because it'd been playing for so long. And for those that weren't playing well before that year, you may not even have had the same experience. There were plenty of people I know that started during that year and they were like, yeah, this is fine. But the feeling of it being so rudderless for that entire period, right after Witchwood launched all the way through the end of Rumble, was hard to shake. And that was the point where I started feeling indifferent about the game, not sad, indifferent. Like I just stopped caring as much. I didn't feel as attached to my cards. Like when I wanted to craft something, I just does some other stuff that I'm like, I'm not going to use it again because things are winding down. I was wrong. I'm glad I was wrong, but I can foresee a future, distant future, where things would the course in Hearthstone would have to change dramatically because the problems back then are unfathomable now. Like, they would have to stop maintaining, like, 8 modes as opposed to just the 2 back then that weren't really getting new content. But it was a rough time where just, like, kinda nothing was happening for months on end. And there are those periods like we have now where there's a lull, and it's like, yeah, we have plenty of stuff to cover, but, you know, we're an hour, 20 minutes into this episode as of recording, and it's a slow week.
Yeah,
There were times where
it's important, like, how the sausage is made. Every week we talk about it, but today there was quite a bit. It's like, what are we going to talk about? What's the narrative this week? What's the story? Obviously, Mysterious Stranger, that's big. That's a big talking point. Knowing us, we easily could have turned that into an entire episode. We don't want to. We'd like to kind of venture around the entire Hearthstone landscape and check in with as much of it as we are interested in. But today, we did have to like put on our thinking cap, I would say, and leave it on longer than is usual. But
yeah,
that is like...
Imagine if that was a year. Imagine if that was a whole year and that's what happened.
That was... What year was Roscon's Rumble? 2018?
18. Because 19 was Rise of Shadows and 20 was Demon Hunter and COVID.
That is correct. Yeah. So no, I'm pretty sure we had this question before. It's like, what was the worst like year in Hearthstone? It was without a doubt 2018 for me.
Yep.
Like it was just a really rough year, and I completely disagreed with the direction of the game.
There was no direction. Game didn't have direction. That was the problem. There was no hand in the wheel. There was no clear idea where we were going. There were significant problems that weren't being addressed properly. The communication was extremely poor. Not just the communication wasn't not enough. It was actively negative towards the game. The communication they were doing made people feel worse. Like it's the only time in Hearthstone history I can really remember that happening. But to answer this question, I'm going to go to another game that I played for 15 to 20 years and have now stopped playing of Magic the Gathering, where I started playing Magic at summer camp in the 90s, and then picked it back up again in early high school, 2001, 2002, and played that through like on a semi-competitive level for over a decade. It's on and off, before and after then. And I've been back to Magic Arena a couple times, and it's not enjoyable to me for a lot of reasons. And most of those reasons are related to me personally. That Magic was a game that served a lot of purposes in my younger life of giving me something to identify with and giving me a sense of community and people to talk to. But it was also really unhealthy for me how much self-esteem I tied up in my performance in the game, how intellectually competitive it was, and how much I engaged in that. I was not a very nice person when Magic was the most important thing in my life, and I'm not proud of who I was back then. And when I go back and play, all those impulses kind of snap back on. They all turn back on, and I feel very regressive in the moment. And so the association that Magic has with the person that I used to be is something that's really hard to get over, combined with the fact that the things about the game, the issues that I had with it, are things that Hearthstone does a great job of mitigating. And if you think you're frustrated by Crackle RNG or Unstable Portal or whatever, when 10% of your games, one player just doesn't get to play their spells because they drew too much or too little mana, it's a core part of the game. And so that's something that, I think that it is, from an academic perspective, fascinating. And I think it creates a lot of tension and depth and technical strategy. But it's just not stuff I'm interested in anymore. And also, most Magic events were nights and weekends, and I work at a movie theater, so can't really do that. Magic Online almost saved that, but the economics of the game also are not particularly great. So it was just all the things. It was mostly my personal stuff, but there was also a lot of stuff around the game that I think the industry was able to iterate on to the point where the pain points were mitigated, and that's where Hearthstone landed. I have been a card gamer my whole life, and I will be a card gamer my whole life. It scratches every itch I have as a gamer, and Hearthstone is the one that does all the things I want right now, and it would have to stop trying for me to give it up. Not even stop being what it is. It would have to stop trying to be something more. And that hasn't been the case for as long as Ben Lee's been director and for as long as Ben Brode was director. It's only that period in between where I had doubts.
A good way to put it. You were extremely self-aware by the way.
14 years of therapy every week.
Yep.
14 years. That'll do it.
To quote a certain TED, I'm not sure you realize how psychologically healthy that actually is.
Which TED?
Lasso. Of the Lasso variety.
No. I don't have Apple TV.
I didn't, and then I did. And then I didn't again because I finished that show.
I've heard that show is the reason to get it. Yeah, I need to watch it.
It's 30-minute episodes. It's very easy to knock it out within a 1 month period of Apple TV.
You overestimate my attention span.
Yeah. So no, I really do think like mine was a confluence. There were two things coming together with StarCraft, which was I was very, very bored with StarCraft, and I was very, very into a new game. One or the other, I do feel at a great enough amount could end my interest with the game. But I like what you focus on, which is also like, yeah, Magic is great. It's just not for me anymore. And I could see myself getting to that point with Hearthstone, but I can't.
And also,
I don't know.
If you're a person that was a Hearthstone player and now you don't feel like you are anymore, or you feel like you have to continue to identify as one, but you don't actually want to play anymore, moving on is okay. We happen to be really committed and invested right now, but if you are not, that's cool. If you're playing Hearthstone just like the reason you read the paper because you do it every day, stop logging in for a week and see if you feel the need to come back. Give yourself space to have the space, to have those boundaries, and you might find I miss it. I really want to come back, and you might reignite that spark after a week or a month or whatever, or you might not miss it, and that's okay too. The biggest way to kill a game for yourself is to keep playing it when you don't want to. That's the biggest way. And with
Amen.
Hearthstone, because I took that Rastakon's error break, and I took a break during KNC too, because I really didn't like the meta for different reasons. And again, my personal life was not a great spot. Because I allow myself to wind down my playtime in the second half of every Hearthstone expansion now, I feel way healthier about it. And this is why also, this is my theory for why I think streamers in general are way more likely to post negative takes on the state of the game, because they don't get to stop. It's their job. They have to play it constantly throughout the expansion. And there have absolutely been metas where if I had to keep playing them, I would have been miserable and hated the game for it.
You
I don't think
can
Hearthstone has that kind
definitely
of
find old episodes where I am 100% miserable, and you can tell. Abso-freaking-lutely.
Yeah. We don't hide it very well, and we've stopped trying to, because it's important to share when we're feeling what we're feeling, but also we're okay with playing a little bit less now. And like, I'm totally okay with a week where I log in to do world quests.
How weird is that that's a thing you can do now?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I'm paraphrasing. Like,
Wow.
it's my Mercs dailies and my weeklies and whatever, but it's basically world quests, right?
A bit more or less. It's not a perfect analogy. It's close enough that I certainly got it. Yeah, it's wild. If you went, as a matter of fact, you know what? I'm remembering this now. I wouldn't recommend you do it. But the episode, I think it was just Joss and me. The episode we did before BlizzCon 2018 when Rastakhan's was announced, it must have been one of the more negative episodes we have ever done. Because when we went to BlizzCon and we did our BlizzCon episode that year, we didn't have access to the guild hall that year, so we didn't have a live episode with a crowd. So that's the one where like if you went back and saw like the clips on episode 400 of Joss and I hanging out in a hotel room drinking bourbon, talking Hearthstone, that was the Rastakhan's Rumble one, and I remember getting a what I would describe as a pretty strong feeling email saying that we sounded like a bunch of shills. That from the episode before BlizzCon to the BlizzCon episode, it felt like a switch had been flipped because we were so down on Hearthstone and we were so stoked in the BlizzCon episode. And it really just came down to we were really unhappy with Hearthstone at that point, and just getting to hang out in person, also drinking and partying at BlizzCon, it was just fun. And we were just jazzed about BlizzCon and just getting to hang with our friends. And that is one of those pieces of feedback that will always stick with me, because they weren't right, but they were on to something. They made me realize
that you were in the environment that was there's a vibe. Even though that was easily the worst BlizzCon I've ever been to, And the feeling.
Let me
that
tell
year
you about
was-
2011.
Yeah.
Let me tell you about BlizzCon
was it bad?
2011, Hat. That was the year Chris Metzen did Geek Is because they had literally nothing to announce.
Yikes.
People forget about that. Everyone's like, "Oh yeah, the Diablo Immortal year. That was so bad. Oh my god, worst BlizzCon ever." I'm like, "No, my friends, it was 2011. That was
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
this was in contention.
Or no, 2010. It was 2010 because it was my first BlizzCon because I loved it, had a great time, and everyone else hates it.
Yeah. Been a while. Anyways, yeah, the environment of BlizzCon makes everything look a little better, but also I remember Rosscon's Rumble is the only BlizzCon demo I have ever done where I hit it on the Sunday and I went to leave and they're like, you can stay and play it again if you want. There was no one waiting in line.
Yeah, Hearthstone needed a lot more right then, and yeah, the amount of course correction and how well they've corrected said course and how much goodwill and legitimately baller ass modes they've brought to this game since, it boggles my mind. Like, I do not believe it. Like, there were a couple times, there's been multiple times where I've thought, am I done? And it happened a lot that year for sure. So, yeah, anyway, I guess that's a very long-winded, and a little bit of a trip down, like, not so great Hearthstone memory lane. But that is all to say that, like, the Hearthstone we have now, and like to play off our comment of like, we had to think about it for like a minute today about what we were going to talk about, because I would consider this quiet. It was just so hilarious when I think about what getting through the entire year of 2018 was like, in terms of trying to do weekly Hearthstone coverage. It was legitimately challenging. And so like when we have like a quiet week like this one, that still isn't even that quiet, that like, I'm at this point now where I'm like, yeah, man, if we had a dead week, we could actually cover an entire XRAMA. Because one of those in and of itself, if you are a Hearthstone nerd the way that we are Hearthstone nerds, there's a lot to chew on there. Every week.
There's always something going on. And I think part of the excitement way back in the day when I first started listening to Attack was that there was so much energy around Hearthstone being the new, cool, amazing thing. And it was blowing up on Twitch and everyone was playing it and everyone was constantly talking about it. And the community energy, even though the weeks on average were slower, well, there was more drama to cover. And I don't know if that's good, but it was there. But also just like people just wanted to plug whatever Hearthstone stuff they could into their veins as much as they could. So even again, you made a Tavern Brawl feed, and that was a commentary on how incredibly exciting Hearthstone was around. That people listened to you talk for 30 minutes about something that they would finish playing in the client in 5 minutes for the week. Like that was the level of energy and enthusiasm back then. It's different now. The game's older. The game's mature, right? And it's okay that the game at its peak post-launch versus now are different things, because what they've done now has brought us as highly engaged players back in, has given new players a lot to do. But of course, it's going to be different. It's not going to be the same.
Nope. No, it is not. But anyways, this GTI, this was a wildly good question that sent me in a lot of different directions. Like you had me thinking about just like the history of the show, as well as my history as a player of games and as a dude who talks into a microphone about them. Like, I haven't thought about.
I think it's an important thing to reflect upon for any game you've left in the past and any game that you view as a lifestyle now, for anyone with any game, because you have to get an idea of what a healthy engagement and disengagement would look like. And if you can't envision that, your engagement's probably unhealthy.
Yeah. And to me, it's so ridiculous because like I have always played tons of different games. And so I have definitely, I so much of the fact that I just don't think of it as leaving games. Most of the time I just feel like, no, I'm finished. I finished the game. The game is done. I finished it. I beat game, or I accomplished what I came to accomplish and I'm done. Like, yeah, I'm a child of I was born in the late 80s. I came up in the 90s and early aughts. Like I just played story games to enjoy the game and I was done with it and I moved on with my life. And I didn't think of it as anything like that. So it's just, it's such an interesting thing to think of. And now I feel like I'm getting into internet boomer territory where I'm like, back in my day, games as a service literally didn't exist. I saw that come about. I saw it be invented. And it is a newer thing. But it's always a fun thing to kind of reflect on and think about. Like, I do not know the last time I thought about why I left StarCraft, why I felt done with it. And then Co-op Commanders came out, and I loved it, and I played the crap out of it, but I wasn't making content about it. I just played it for my own enjoyment, and I had a great time. So, you never know.
Yeah.
You never know. You can always come back. You can absolutely always come back. We get emails from folks all the time. Not that that was what this GTI's question was about, but you had mentioning that, hey, if you're not having a good time, take a break. You can always come back, because we hear from people that...
There have been people...
A lot.
There have been people tweeting at me that are like, I'm coming back from Mercs. What do I do to get gold for Mercs? And I'm like, well, fish out your old decks and play in casual, or run a Tavern Brawl, just do a couple dailies, get the gold, spend it in Mercs.
How old of a player are you? Because let us tell you about Classic.
Yeah, that's what I did in my wife's account, is that we needed to win 5 ranked games because she wanted the card back. She had Classic Zoo. We put Flame Imp on 1 and played some Zoo. It was awesome.
How great is that?
Zoo Coin Young Priestess Getcha.
Good stuff. Good stuff.
Yeah.
Such a good question.
That's a 1 minute 3-3. It's a 1 minute 3-3 right there. Yeah. This GTI, this is a Hall of Fame question. That's what this is.
This is a Hall of Famer. This is a meaty one. So thank you. Anyways, that's going to bring us to the end of this episode. If you want to be part of the show, you got a question for us, a commentary. Maybe you feel like a switch has been flipped and suddenly we're way more positive or way more negative than usual. Write in. Even if you're not right, you might make me discover something about myself in the process. You can write in to tacpodcast@gmail.com. Before we go, we've got some folks to thank and some things to promote. We want to thank our wonderful patrons supporting us over at patreon.com/TAC. If you're out there, you're getting this episode week in, week out. You like what we're bringing to you. Whether we're entertaining you, keeping you informed, combination of the two, maybe inspiring you to go play something different. And you want to support us, the Patreon is the best way to do so. Check out patreon.com/TAC. It's completely opt-in, and it does legitimately help us pay our bills. I'm very fortunate in that I get to do this kind of stuff, and it actually helps me keep a roof over my head. So thank you very much for the support, everybody. Also, a huge thanks to our Patreon producers, Declan H., Jeffrey D., and Dustin C. If you want to become a producer, we have a couple slots left. Check out patreon.com/TAC. We'll thank you each and every episode for your support. If you want to catch the back catalog of episodes, which we talked a bit about today, that can be found over at theangrychicken.com, or the video archives are over at youtube.com/amove2. It's a numerical 2. You can also follow the show on Twitter at TAC Podcast, which do not forget to go follow that account and retweet our latest tweet not our latest tweet at the time of recording this, or who knows in the future. Go find the tweet for the giveaway for the 5 Lich King Mercenary bundles sent to us by the Hearthstone team. You can follow our account at TAC Podcast and retweet that for a chance to win those 5 packs. If it's not packs, bundles. And also tweet at TAC Podcast with hashtag I forgot what I chose, Arthas for War Chief. Hashtag Arthas for War Chief. Tweet at TAC Podcast with that hashtag. And for a chance to win the other 5 that we're giving away, we will be checking for duplicates, though. You can catch us live Mondays at 8 p.m. Eastern, typically over at twitch.tv/AMoveTV. With any luck, we'll be talking about the mini set next week, but we'll see when we get there. Joss is not here today, but you should go give her a follow at Joss Plays and go support her Extra Life drive this year by going to bit.ly/TGI Extra Life 2021. Extra Life's a great cause. Joss has been doing it for years. You should go support her campaign. But Hat, where can folks find you?
You can find me at the podcast that Garrett plugged for me earlier in the episode over at coinconcede.com. or vicioussyndicate.com. Coin Concede, we make the competitive side of the game more accessible to you. Vicious Syndicate's day-driven look at the standard meta game and the hub of my content, as always, for better or worse. If you consider it content, as twitter.com/RidiculousHat, where I tweet things. And also, my wife, when she visits my parents' house to help them pack, which I can't go because I'm busy working, she will tweet things that I wrote when I was 30 years younger.
Oh, I saw that, and I want to see more.
Yeah. I think she tries to embarrass me with pictures of me when I was younger. It's like, yeah, that's me. And I'm not super embarrassed that I was once a smaller person.
Yeah,
it happens to most.
I
of
go
us.
another route. When anyone ever tries to embarrass me with stuff like that, I go, I don't know if you've met me, but I literally talk publicly every day about video games on the internet. So there's not really that much you can do to embarrass me. If you're like, look at this nerd, anyone you show to is going to be like, yeah, we know. That does not surprise us in the least.
And also, you can tell that person, hey, you know who we both talk about video games for sometimes? People pay me to do it. What's up?
Sometimes, yeah.
But also, sometimes we offer those services free of charge.
Well, they are.
talk
I mean, they
about
are
video
free of
games.
charge. They're not behind paywalls, but we do ask that you consider going and paying for them. Which, when I talk to certain people, they go, "How does that work?" And I just look at them and just like, I would like to exit this conversation now.
I will say a business model based on people being nice and giving you money is kind of like hard to reconcile with humanity that we know. But see, the thing about the average humans are nowhere near the level of quality that TAC humans are. TAC listeners are an echelon above the rest of humanity.
I'm not sure
in terms of
I jive
kindness.
with the ethics of saying you're a better person if you give us money, but I'll allow it.
I don't think
That's
think you're a
exactly
better
what
person
you
if give us
said.
money.
Everyone heard it. You don't need to repeat it. It's okay, Hat. We heard what you said.
I am a tax shill. I am shilling the show that I am currently on. Is that even a thing? I don't even know what the word shill means. It's only used for internet arguments. No one has ever used that word in a sentence outside of internet arguments. Garrett, where can people find you on the internet?
Garrett Art on Twitter. You can find me at Garrett Art on Twitter, getting lost on the other coast of Florida, but finding wonderful ramen to energize my 3.5 hour drive back. Turns out it's a wide state, everybody. It's a wide state. amove.tv for this podcast and every single other one that I produce. I would highly, highly, highly kindly ask you to please go check out Nexus Gaming News, my newest podcast, and also it is available in YouTube form over at youtube.com/amovetv. So go check that out. That's going to do it for this episode of The Angry Chicken. Thank you so much for listening, everybody. Until next time. I almost said until we get to talk about the mini set, but we're not actually sure that's going to come out next week, and we are definitely doing an episode next week. Job's done.
Job's done.
Aw, yeah.
Leaving that in the show.
The aw, yeah?
I sure am.
Ooh. I'm just going to keep talking real deep.
You can do that. I stopped recording, though.
Ah, cool. I had to talk to financial aid at the college I'm getting my master's from, and they were like, "You should do like radio or voice acting or something." And I was like, "Yeah, I get
Funny
that sometimes."
that you mentioned that.
I get that sometimes.
It's did you mention that you got 100 in your podcasting class?
Holy shit. That's funny. I legitimately wish I had thought about that.
You need to. So in the future, when someone asks you that, you should be like, I did do very well in my podcasting class. I'm gonna think about it. I'm gonna think about it.
Now that you mention it, I did ace my my art of podcasting class. Maybe I should try it.
It was framed as an art.
The art of podcasting. Listen, it is infinitely memeable. There's no universe where you can't be a podcaster for 11 years and not make jokes about the fact that you're taking the art of podcasting because you needed an elective and options were limited. It was fun. I had a good time.
I'm not here to judge the class. I'm here to judge the craft. Calling this art, I think, is. I mean, there are some podcasts I listen to that are very well produced and well made and tell a story and unravel a narrative. And then there's our show, which is mostly dick jokes.
We didn't have any dick jokes today.
Got to work on that next time.
As long as you don't need to work on the dick.
I don't know if there's supposed to be a follow-up that I predicted here or that I'm supposed to be aware of.
There isn't one. There isn't one. If Joss was here, they'd be awkward laughing, and that would have filled the space. But
I was wondering if I was missing a reference or something.
it's just the two. No.
I guess it's good that I'm not.
Yeah. Listen, sometimes sometimes you technically keep the hacky sack in the air, but it goes off in a wild direction and no one can do anything with it.
I mean, I'm all the segue jokes I can think from that one would also leave us all in a similar situation, so I'm just gonna drop it.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
I also have to pee, so I'm gonna go do that, and you should bring the stream down
I should.
so we can publish the show.
I should do that. Yeah, stream, you've been awesome. Thank you for hanging out, being lovely people. We had a lot of first-time chatters tonight, which I did not realize was a feature in Twitch, but it's kind of cool.
I think it's a new feature. I think it's a new feature, but also love to see it. I think it's a great feature. Welcome, first-time chatters. Congrats, Lepton, on your leaderboard spot. Hope you keep it. And, hopefully next week we have specific constructed news to share in the mini set. Would love that. But if we don't, we'll figure it out.
Yeah. Alrighty, folks. Gonna bring the stream down. Hat's gonna pee. Talk to y'all later.